Starting in 19 days, walking into an airport with the wrong ID gets you turned away. No exceptions, no refunds. A 67-year-old woman was just denied boarding in Atlanta with a driver's license she's used for 40 years. A businessman lost 2,800 in tickets because of a passport rule that changed without warning. And the TSA? They're not making exceptions anymore. One small mistake, a name mismatch, an expired document, a missing stamp, and your trip is over before it starts. February 2026 is when everything changes, and most travelers have no idea what's coming. Here's what gate agents are whispering about. These new rules aren't just stricter versions of old policies. There are completely new requirements that didn't exist last year. There's a digital verification system that's rejecting documents that look perfectly valid. And there's one rule about children's identification that's separating families at security checkpoints. The final rule on this list is causing chaos at international terminals right now. Even experienced travelers are getting caught. Stay until the end, because what's coming on February 1st could cost you thousands if you're not prepared. Real ID becomes mandatory. Your driver's license might be worthless. Let's start with the rule that affects the most people and causes the most confusion. After years of delays, Real ID enforcement begins February 1st, 2026. If your driver's license doesn't have a star in the upper right corner, it's no longer valid for domestic air travel. Period. Here's what this actually means. That driver's license you've used for decades, if it doesn't say Real ID compliant or show that star symbol, TSA will reject it. You won't get through security. Your boarding pass becomes worthless. Your hotel reservation, rental car, meeting, wedding, vacation, all gone. But here's where it gets complicated and catches people off guard. Not all states issue Real ID by default. Some states offer both standard licenses and Real ID licenses. If you renewed your license in the past few years but didn't specifically request Real ID, you might have the non-compliant version. Check right now. Look at your license. No star? You have a problem. Getting Real ID requires an in-person DMV visit with specific documents, birth certificate or passport, social security card, and 2 proofs of residency, like utility bills or bank statements. The process takes 30-90 minutes at the DMV, then 2 to 3 weeks for the new license to arrive by mail. Here's the nightmare scenario playing out right now during the transition period. Margaret from Phoenix went to the airport January 15th for a flight to her daughter's wedding. She'd flown 6 times in 2025 with the same license. No issues. But her airport started early enforcement. TSA rejected her license. She had her passport at home, but not with her. She missed her flight, drove home, grabbed her passport, rebooked for the next day, and paid $480 in change fees. All because of a star symbol she didn't know mattered. The alternative to Real ID, a valid passport or passport card. If you have either, you're fine. But millions of Americans don't have passports. About 37% of the population has never had one. For domestic-only travelers who've relied on driver's licenses their entire lives, this is a shock. Here's what you must do before February 1st. Check your license right now. Star in the corner? You're good. No star. You need Real ID or a passport. Don't wait until the last week of January. DMV appointments are already backed up in many states. Processing times are extending due to the rush. The name match rule that's denying boarding. Here's the rule that's catching thousands of passengers, especially women who've changed names. Your ID must match your boarding pass exactly. Not close enough, exactly. Every letter, every space, every hyphen. Here's where this becomes a nightmare. If you got married or divorced and changed your name, but your ticket shows your maiden name because that's what's in the Airlines system from previous bookings, you'll be denied boarding. If your legal name is Robert, but you go by Bob, and that's on your ticket, denied. If your name has a hyphen but the ticket doesn't, or vice versa, denied. The TSA's Secure Flight program now cross-references your boarding pass name against your ID with zero tolerance for discrepancies. The system is automated. Gate agents can't override it. Jennifer Martinez Smith discovered this the hard way. She got married, changed her name legally to Martinez Smith with a hyphen. Her old frequent flyer account had just Martinez. When she booked using that account, the ticket printed as Jennifer Martinez. Her license says Jennifer Martinez Smith. TSA rejected the mismatch. She spent 90 minutes with airline customer service trying to fix it, missed her flight, and paid rebooking fees. Here's the critical action item. Log into your frequent flyer accounts right now. Check the name on file. Compare it to your current legal ID. If there's any difference, even one letter, one space, one hyphen, update it immediately. Then when booking, verify the name on your boarding pass matches your ID exactly before completing purchase. If you notice a mismatch after booking, call the airline immediately. Most will correct it for free if you catch it before travel. At the airport, corrections cost $50 to $200 and often aren't possible. The 6-month passport validity rule for international travel. Here's the international travel rule that strands Americans abroad constantly. Many countries require your passport to be valid for 6 months beyond your travel dates. Not just valid for the trip, valid for 6 months after you plan to return home. Your passport expires August 1st, 2026. You're traveling in March. That seems fine. Your passport is valid for 5 months after your return. Wrong. Many countries will deny you entry. The airline won't even let you board, because they're liable for flying inadmissible passengers. Here's the list of major destinations with 6-month validity rules. Mexico, Canada, most Caribbean nations, most European countries, all of Asia, most of Africa, and most of South America. Basically, everywhere except a few countries that specifically have agreements with the US. But here's where it gets more complicated. Some countries have 3-month rules instead of 6. Some have specific calculations about remaining validity. The rules aren't consistent. David booked a trip to Thailand in March 2026. His passport expires September 2026, valid for 6 months after his return. He shows up at LAX. The airline agent checks his passport and refuses to issue his boarding pass. Thailand requires 6 months validity from entry date, not return date. His passport fails by 3 months. He lost $4,200 in non-refundable tickets and hotel reservations. Here's the rule you must follow. For any international travel, your passport should be valid for at least 7 months beyond your departure date. That gives you buffer for the strictest country requirements. If your passport expires within a year of your travel dates, renew it now. Passport renewals are taking 10-13 weeks for routine processing, 7 to 9 weeks for expedited processing, extra $60, and 1 to 2 weeks for emergency processing at passport agencies, requires proof of urgent travel. Don't wait until the last minute. The new biometric screening at security. Here's the technology change that's rolling out nationwide starting February 1st. TSA is implementing facial recognition biometric screening at all major airports. You'll scan your ID, then look into a camera. The system compares your face to your ID photo using facial recognition software. Here's what this means practically. The process is faster, about 30 seconds per passenger versus 45-60 seconds with manual document checks. But it requires your face to be clearly visible. Hats, sunglasses, masks, all must be removed. Heavy makeup that dramatically alters your appearance can cause failures. The system sometimes rejects perfectly valid IDs because of photo discrepancies. If you've gained or lost significant weight, changed your hairstyle dramatically, or aged significantly since your ID photo, the system might flag you for secondary screening. Here's the privacy concern. TSA stores your biometric data. You can opt out. There's a process to decline facial recognition and request manual document verification. But opting out takes longer, and some travelers report being treated with extra scrutiny. Starting February 1st, biometric screening becomes mandatory at 40 major airports. By June 2026, it'll be nationwide. The medication documentation rule. That's catching seniors. Here's the new rule causing major problems for travelers with medications. All prescription medications must be in original pharmacy-labeled containers. Pill organizers are no longer acceptable without additional documentation. If you have pills in weekly organizers or unlabeled bottles, TSA can confiscate them. But here's the new requirement. For controlled substances, painkillers, anxiety medications, ADHD medications, sleep aids, you now need a copy of your prescription or a letter from your doctor on official letterhead confirming the medication and dosage. This rule exists to combat prescription drug trafficking, but it's catching legitimate patients who travel with necessary medications. Here's what happened to Robert from Denver. He takes 7 medications daily. He organized them in a weekly pill container for his 2-week trip. TSA pulled him aside, identified 2 controlled substances among his pills, and asked for documentation. He had none. He didn't know the rule. They confiscated those specific medications. He was traveling to Alaska with no pharmacy access for days. His blood pressure medication and anxiety medication were gone. He ended up in urgent care spending $300 to get emergency prescriptions. Here's what you must do. Keep all medications in original bottles with pharmacy labels showing your name, drug name, prescribing doctor, and dosage. For controlled substances, ask your doctor for a letter on letterhead listing your medications. Take photos of all pill bottles with your phone as backup documentation. Pack these in your carry-on. Never checked luggage. The laptop and electronics screening changes. Here's the new electronics rule that's slowing security lines dramatically. All laptops, tablets, e-readers, and portable gaming devices must now be removed from bags and placed in separate bins, even if you have TSA pre-check. The previous exception for pre-check travelers has been eliminated. But there's a new restriction. Power banks and portable chargers over 100 watt-hours are now completely prohibited in both carry-on and checked bags. Most standard power banks are 20-30 mAh, which translates to about 75 to 110 watt-hours. Check your power bank specifications carefully. Here's how to calculate watt-hours. mAh or 1000, x voltage. Most power banks are 3.7 V. A 27,000 mAh power bank is approximately 100 watt-hours, right at the limit. Anything over gets confiscated. Sarah had a high-capacity power bank for photography equipment, 150 watt-hours. TSA confiscated it at security. The power bank cost 180. She couldn't retrieve it or mail it home. Gone. Additionally, spare lithium batteries must now be in your carry-on, not checked luggage, and must be in original packaging or have terminals taped to prevent short circuits. Loose batteries in your bag can cause TSA to pull your entire bag for inspection. The liquid rule expansion to gels and creams. Here's the rule expansion that's confiscating more items than ever. The 3.4-ounce liquid rule now explicitly includes all gels, creams, pastes, and aerosols. This has always been technically true, but enforcement is now strict and expanded to include items passengers didn't previously consider liquids. Newly enforced items include peanut butter, Nutella, jam, honey, yogurt, cream cheese, dips, hummus, salsa, liquid-filled teethers for babies, snow globes, gel shoe inserts, liquid-filled candles, and even thick lotions and hair products. But here's the new rule causing the most confusion. Medically necessary liquids over 3.4 ounces are still allowed, but you must declare them at the beginning of screening. You can't just leave them in your bag. Take them out, tell the TSA agent they're medically necessary, and they'll inspect them separately. Parents traveling with formula, breast milk, or baby food can bring reasonable quantities, but these must also be declared and screened separately. TSA defines reasonable as enough for the flight plus a small buffer, not 2 weeks' worth. The children's ID requirement that changed. Here's the new rule that's separating families at security. Children under 18 traveling domestically previously didn't need ID if accompanied by a parent or guardian. That changed February 1st. Now, children 16 and older must present valid ID, driver's license, state ID, or passport. For children under 16, no ID is required, but TSA may ask the parent to verify the child's identity with birth certificates or other documentation. It's not required, but highly recommended to bring. Here's where families are getting caught. Teenagers who haven't gotten driver's licenses yet. A 17-year-old traveling with parents needs valid ID now. If they don't have a driver's license or state ID, they need a passport. Many families don't realize this until they're at the airport. The Johnsons traveled with their 16-year-old daughter who doesn't drive yet and has no state ID. They arrived at the airport and TSA requested her ID. She had none. TSA allowed her to board this time with extensive additional screening, but warned that after February 1st she'll be denied. The family had to rush to get her a state ID before their bukui. Next trip. The international departure tax and fee changes. Here's the new cost that's shocking international travelers. Several countries implemented or increased departure taxes effective January 2026. These fees aren't always included in your ticket price, especially for tickets booked before the fee implementations. The UK raised air passenger duty for long-haul flights by 12% depending on class. EU countries increased airport departure fees by 5 to 15s. Several Caribbean nations added new tourism departure taxes of $40–60. If your ticket was purchased before these fees took effect, you may be required to pay them at the airport before departure. Some travelers are arriving at international airports and being told they owe an additional $60–80 in fees they didn't know about. Always check the departure country's current fee structure before traveling, especially if you booked tickets months in advance. The TSA pre-check and clear combination changes. Here's the new policy. Affecting expedited screening programs. TSA pre-check enrollment appointments are now required. Walk-ins are no longer accepted at most enrollment centers. The enrollment fee increased from $78 to $85 for 5 years. But here's the new option. Annual renewals are now available for $22 per year, giving flexibility to travelers unsure about long-term commitment. Clear pricing changed as well. The annual fee increased from $180 to $190, but family member additions dropped from $60 to $50 per person. The calculation changes depending on your family size. Here's the critical new rule. Clear now requires annual identity re-verification. You must return to a Clear pod once per year to rescan your biometrics. If you don't, your membership suspends until you re-verify. This is catching frequent travelers who assumed enrollment was permanent. The code-share flight confusion rule. Here's the rule that's confusing passengers booking through multiple airlines. Code-share flights, where one airline sells tickets on another airline's plane, are creating baggage allowance and rule confusion. The rules of the operating airline apply, not the selling airline. Example, you book through United, but the flight is operated by Lufthansa. Lufthansa's rules apply for baggage, carry-ons, pet policies, and seat selection, even though you bought a United ticket. Many passengers discover at the airport that their baggage allowance is different than expected. Their carry-on is the wrong size for the operating airline's rules, or policies they thought applied don't. Always check which airline is actually operating your flight. It's shown on your booking confirmation as operated by. Research that airline's specific policies, not just the selling airline's policies. The final critical rule, the fit to fly health screening. Here's the new rule that's the most controversial and causing the most chaos. Starting February 1st, airlines can deny boarding to passengers they deem unfit to fly based on visible health conditions, intoxication, or disruptive behavior before boarding even begins. This isn't new in concept. Airlines always had this authority. What's new is the formal screening process and documentation requirements. Gate agents can now request medical documentation if they observe conditions that might affect flight safety. Severe coughing, difficulty breathing, visible infections, mobility issues, suggesting inability to evacuate an emergency, or signs of intoxication. The controversy? The subjectivity. Gate agents aren't medical professionals, yet they're making health-based boarding decisions. Civil liberties advocates are already challenging this. But here's the practical reality. If you're traveling with any visible health condition, bring documentation from your doctor stating you're cleared for air travel. This includes recent surgeries, mobility aids, oxygen equipment, or any condition that might appear concerning to untrained observers. Airlines are implementing this to reduce in-flight medical emergencies and diversions, which cost airlines $50 per incident. But passengers are caught in the middle. These new rules starting February 2026 represent the most significant changes to air travel regulations in over a decade. From identification requirements to health screenings to electronics policies, every aspect of the airport experience is changing. The common thread: stricter enforcement with zero tolerance for exceptions. The "we'll let it slide this time" era of air travel is over. Compliance is mandatory. Mistakes are costly. Here's your action checklist before February 1st. Check your driver's license for the real ID star. Update your frequent flyer account names to match your ID exactly. Verify passport expiration dates for any international travel. Organize medications with proper documentation. Review power bank watt hours. Prepare children's IDs if they're 16 plus. Enroll in TSA pre-check if you haven't already. These aren't suggestions. These are requirements that will determine whether you board your flight or watch it leave without you. If this breakdown helped you prepare for the February changes, hit that like button. Subscribe for more travel updates that prevent expensive mistakes. Drop a comment. Which new rule concerns you most? February 1st, 2026 isn't just another day. It's when air travel gets serious about enforcement. Be prepared or be denied. Prepared or be denied. Prepared or be denied.